Okay, everybody, how y'all doing out there? Stephanie Stevens here. In conversation with Larry today is Miss Clive. Miss Clive is going to talk about black men and mental health, and how important it is for black men to actually seek services for their mental health. So we're going to talk to Clive. So how are you, Clive?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Larry, Miss Everything.
Oh, okay. Thank you. In conversation with Larry today, we want to talk about black men and mental health. Now, first of all, tell us where you're from.
Well, originally I'm from the Caribbean, small island called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I migrated to Canada about 20 something years now. I've been living here most of my life. And I've been calling Canada home for the longest while.
Okay. Now, so can you see without them?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, because there's such a glare on the camera. So you've been living in Canada now for 20 years. So
More than 20, about 27 years.
Oh.
Most of my adult life.
Now, how important it is for black men to seek mental health? First of all, how do black men know that they have this issue?
It's a very, how to say, not tricky, but complicated and complex state of living. That it has many labels, it has many, how to put it, connotations in terms of stigma, and as well as different dynamics when it comes to social services. I'm speaking from the background of healthcare because I'm a nurse by training. I worked in the capacity of advocacy in HIV and AIDS, and as well as a nurse, working as a coordinator for hospice for people living with AIDS, HIV and AIDS in Ottawa for last 5-7 years ago, and to put not a label but to put a highlight in terms of mental health is something that is intrinsically affecting many black men in our community and in communities across the world due to the fact that of social, economical and functioning deliberate acts of infringing on our basic rights as people to exist. And that could take on different things, from abuse to the social justice system to job employment, housing, and everything else that makes you feel like a human being, where you feel that as a human being you can't exist anymore.
Now, when you talk about the housing and what actually sets, what do you think this comes from? I mean, the mental illness in the first place. What do you think black men, like, is it the fact that maybe some come from broken homes, or they've immigrated into a country that doesn't really say that they accept them but doesn't really accept them, and then for you to find your place in your new home, which is the new country that you have to adapt to, and what do you think this comes from?
Speaking from experience, we all have baggages. Don't think that we don't have baggages. We all, no matter how much somebody could say they are well adjusted to society, we all have baggages that we carry with us, and that can be on a psychological basis, based on the outside stimuli that are affecting us on a daily basis, from the songs of the streets to the crying of a baby to the standing in line and being discriminated against because you ask for something and you're considered to be loud for asking for it. These things do affect us on a deeper psychological, subconscious level. And there's where things are actually happening when it comes to mental health, is on a subconscious level. We are suffering because we are conditioned into these stereotypical ideas of living, and it affects us greatly.
So what do you think are what steps have you taken or someone you know with mental health? What being part of the LGBTQ community, what steps do you think they should take to seek help for their mental health program? As you know, we have CAMH here that is a really great resource for everyone here dealing with some sort of mental health, and they have lots of programs there. What do you think black men, and especially from the LGBT community, what do you think black men should do? What's the first steps they should take? Should they recognize that they actually have an issue and then seek out someone? Because like you said, when you immigrate to these countries, sometimes these social workers might not really understand your plight. Even though you're in a safe space, and mentally you're still not at home. In a sense, we want you to feel like you're at home, but most immigrants here don't feel that, even though they're permanent residents or citizens here, they still never feel like they belong.
So in terms of that is that we have to start owning our own internal space by accepting the fact that we are dealing with issues that compound our ability to exist. Once we begin to own those spaces, we can then seek out the necessary services that are available that aligns with us. We have to find things that aligns with us. If it doesn't align with you, then it's not going to work. Simple. So yes, CAMH and other integrated services for people with mental health is available. For me, from my experience dealing with mental health, and I'm saying this frankly, is that I had to own my own internal space, which means dealing with my issues from an internal space. So tapping into my experience from since I was a child to now, in terms of spirituality, in terms of finding my family. Sometimes it not be your own blood family. You might have to find your own family. So within the gay community, we might have to look out and see people that align with us, that says, you know what, I see you, I recognize you, I accept you for who you are and your stuff that you're struggling with, so that I can help you in whatever capacity I can to get over that bridge, rather than being a roadblock in your way, being a lending hand in terms of getting you from this point, which is not a straight road, it's a winding road that we have to travel, and helping you around those bends as you go. And you will see a way to the end of how you can get over some of these problems that are there. And with these problems, they are not problems that are solved immediately. They are experiences that you experience throughout your life, and it's how you cater yourself in dealing with them is what gives you the upper hand in overcoming the problem. So this is where I'm at right now in my stages, getting around those bends by seeking out services that align with me. So CAMH, LGBTQA, non-binary, all of the labels that are there for us, accessing those that align with me so that I too can feel that I'm part of a family that accept me for who I am, be part of my process in terms of dealing with the issues that I need dealt with, and giving me the resources that are available in order to deal with them. That's how I'm dealing with it. That's how I'm dealing with mental health. And to be honest with you, it's not an easy road. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of grit, a lot of guts, a lot of determination to get there, but you will get there at some point. It is important that we put some space aside for our own self-care, our own self-determination of what we want and what we need out of life. It's important as well to look into the connectivity between a higher power and our own mortal mobilities. We are limited to the things that we are not privy to if we don't seek them out ourselves. So you have to start seeking it out for yourself, rather than relying on someone else's dictation of what it is to be, as some people say, spiritual, alive, awakened, knowing. You have to seek that out yourself, and then from there you can start creating your own roadmap in terms of dealing with mental health.
Now, in closing, a lot of black men in the LGBT community are struggling with not just mental health, drug addiction, sex addiction, lots of different issues, which a lot of people in the community are suffering. But we're focusing on black men because this is what we see that is lacking and missing, and the voices, the black men voices in the community are not being heard. So we want to address those so we can figure out how to provide programs for black men within the LGBT community to actually be brave enough to come forth, because years ago a lot of the black community did not come to the Toronto LGBT community and participate, whether it was Pride or going to the bars or just socializing within the village. Now we're seeing more black people that are more visible, but their voices aren't heard as much. They're trying to get a foothold into making sure that their voices are heard now. But what do you think the black LGBT men who are really suffering behind closed doors? Because you know, a lot of times they're disconnected from the white communities, which controls the village. So what do you think what's the first step black men should do to make sure that they are receiving just not inclusion into the community itself, but to seek the services that they need instead of suffering behind closed doors? What do you think they should do?
Well, that's a multifaceted point of putting it in terms of integration, being part of, being accepted, dealing with, and as well overcoming a lot of these struggles that we face. It goes back to decades of conditioning. We need to uncondition ourselves from some of these things that are so-called keeping us apart, from barriers that are keeping us in this prison, this cage state of living. So what we need to do is to be vocal, one, about our needs. Don't look at things as wants. Look at things as needs. We need our space too. We need to be part of. If you're gonna label us in terms of living in a community or living in a community as being inclusive, let me feel like it is being done. So we need to voice it. We need to put our voice and put action to it as well. So we need to also proactively make spaces that are including us in it, in those decision-making parts as well. So we put ourselves there and said, you know, I'm part of this decision too. So let my voice be heard. Let my action speak for it too. In terms of dealing with some of the behind the doors issues, use as much as you can what is available to you. We are sometimes limited to certain things that are in society that we can use as tools to help us with some of these addictions. But the one fundamental thing I would say to people is that don't always blame yourself, because you're not the fault. You're not at fault for some of these things. Different circumstances conditioned us into certain situation that we find ourselves in. It's how we deal with it. Are we dealing with it on a moral level? Are we dealing it with a reactive level? If you're dealing with it reactive, it means that you just want something out of it for the temporary relief. But if you do something with the understanding that you need to deal with this issue and face it head on and be accountable and put it into context that you're not impeding somebody else's ability to exist, that's the most important thing you can do, is that you're not doing it to affect somebody else. What you're doing is not affecting somebody else down the line, but what you're doing is also just lending to the fact that your experience lends to someone getting over that issue or that problem that they have been facing, because they can borrow from your experience and said, you know what, I've seen this person do this, this and this and this, and then I could apply some of that technique to me so I can get over this issue. Just to touch on the issue of drugs, we all at some point have come in contact with it, but it's up to you as the individual to say to yourself, if I have somebody at my place, do I leave it out for them to see, or do I put it in a discreet place? But if they ask for it, be honest and open about it and say, listen, yes, this is what I do in terms of this, this and this and this. This is how I do it to safely get me through. You are lending yourself to that person, creating a positive idea about how to approach something that may be considered morally wrong or morally, in disadvantage to somebody. You're giving them the tool to say, I'm touching this with good intention so that you don't feel the negative effect from it.
Okay.
Simple.
Wonderful. Now, I just want to say in closing today, I want to thank you for being on the show today in conversation with Larry. You've given us great insight into a lot of some steps we can take towards encouraging black men to seek mental health services and break down those doors so they can get into some of the programs that will benefit them here in
Aligning
Canada.
themselves with things that will benefit them. That's the most important thing. Is that not everything is going to align with you. And this is the facts of life. Not everything, because we all have different strokes when it comes to existing. But if you align with things that will help you get through a situation, then use it to your best advantage with good intention, so that at the end, the outcome is going to be good for you, but not stopping somebody else's from accessing that same services and getting the same result or similar result, because not each result is the same. They are similar in experience, but different, which means it's you. It becomes your experience, your sole experience that is working for you.
So I just want to say thank you so much today for being on the show in conversation with Larry. This is Miss Clive. We'll just call you. This is what we call him in the community, Miss Clive. And he gave us his thoughts on what he thinks black men should do to address their mental health and also incorporate themselves into the village, the gay village, the LGBT community, and how black men are stigmatized for whatever the reason is, but yet their voices need to be heard loud and clear. And it's very important for black LGBT men to be very visible. So I want to just say thank you today for being on the show and giving us a little bit of your insight. And until next time, in conversation with Larry, Miss Clive.